Okay, yesterday on CBS's Face the Nation, Donald Trump's former pick for FDA, or his pick for FDA commissioner, Marty McCary, Dr. Marty McCary, spent time cherry picking vaccine skepticism with out of context statistics and attempting to pass them off as medical evidence. Margaret Brennan looks genuinely stunned, and for good reason, because although this is an individual with a medical degree speaking, this was really a political influencer in a metaphorical lab coat, pushing the idea that if enough people believe something about a vaccine, then it must be valid public health advice. If a lot of people don't like the vaccine must be bad. This is a doctor speaking. Take a listen to this.
So I don't know if you know these statistics, but for 88% of American kids, their parents have said no to the COVID shot last season. So the vast majority of Americans are saying no. Maybe they want to see some clinical data as well. Maybe they have concerns about the safety.
I don't want to crowdsource my health guidance. I want a clear thing, right? You don't go with popularity. You go with, as you're saying, data. And when we
let's see the data.
Okay, so the CDC data said 41% of children aged 6 months to 17 years hospitalized with COVID between 2022 and 2024 did not have a known underlying condition. In other words, they looked healthy. And COVID was serious for them.
So first of all, we know the CDC data is contaminated with a lot of false positives from incidental positive COVID tests with routine testing of every kid that walks in the hospital. When I go to the ICU, when I walk to we know that data historically under the Biden administration did not distinguish being sick from COVID or an incidental positive COVID test. When you go to an ICU in America and you ask how many people are in the ICU that are healthy, that are sick with COVID, the answer I get again and again is we haven't seen that in a year or years. And so the worst thing you can do in public health is to put out an absolute universal recommendation in young, healthy kids. And the vast majority of Americans are saying, no, we want to see some data. And you say, forget about the data, just get it anyway.
Okay, so on data and transparency. For decades, since 1964, it was the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, ACIP, that went through this panel recommendation. I mean, people watched these things during COVID. The report was then handed up. It offered debate, it offered transparency, and it offered data points that people could refer back to. Why did you bypass all of this and just come down with a decision before the panel could meet and make that data?
That panel has been a kangaroo court where they just rubber.
So listen. The data's bad because of this reason. The CDC panel is bad because of this reason. Just trust Bobby Kennedy Jr. and whatever he tells you as he wipes raw milk off of his mouth, and trust Marty McCary, and trust the fact that a great number of Americans are self-destructive and stubbornly ignorant. And as a result of that, they haven't gotten the vaccine, so you shouldn't either. And Margaret Brennan does a really good job of exposing Marty McCary here for making it up as he goes along, making conflicting recommendations, casting doubt on CDC data, while then saying, no, the data you can believe. And he is so terrible during this interview that she is left shaking her head as she wraps it up.
Not to right now. You just said don't trust the CDC.
We're saying it's going to be between a doctor and a patient until that committee meets or more experts weigh in or we get some clinical data. If there's zero clinical data, you're opining. I mean, it's a theory. And so we don't want to put out.
Wrong definition of theory, by the way. This is a doctor.
Out an absolute recommendation for kids with no clinical data.
So you made this pronouncement as well on pregnant women. There is data. Researchers in the UK analyzed a series of 67 studies, which included 1.8 million women. And the journal BMJ Global Health published it. People can Google it at home. And it says the COVID vaccine in pregnant women is highly effective in reducing the odds of maternal SARS-CoV-2 infection, hospital admission, and improves pregnancy outcomes with no serious safety concerns. This is data that shows that it is recommended or could be advised for pregnant women to take this vaccine. Why do you find otherwise?
There's no randomized controlled trial. That's the gold standard. Those 67 studies are mixed. The data in pregnant women is different for healthy versus women with a comorbid condition. So it's a very mixed bag. So we're saying your obstetrician, your primary care doctor, and the pregnant woman should together decide whether or not to get it. 12% of pregnant women last year got the COVID shot. So people have serious concerns, and it's probably because they want to see a randomized trial data. The randomized trial in pregnant women.
The world moves on. And you published in the New England Journal of Medicine on May 20th, in that report you referenced, you listed pregnancy as an underlying medical condition that increases a person's risk for severe COVID. You said that. So then 7 days later, you joined in this video announcement saying you should drop the recommendation for the COVID vaccine in healthy pregnant women. So what changed in the 7 days?
In the New England Journal of Medicine, we simply list what the CDC has traditionally defined as high risk, and we're just saying decide with your doctor.
If you're confused, this guy is as pathetic as you can imagine. So your confusion is because he's flip-flopping. And finally, here's Margaret Brennan just kind of shaking her head. How is this the guy that the Trump administration is putting forward?
Unclear what pregnant women now should do until they get the data that
I'd say talk to their doctor.
When do they get the data you're promising? All these controlled studies.
In the absence of data, they should talk to their doctor, and their doctor will use their best wisdom and judgment.
FDA Commissioner, thank you for trying to help clear.
So let's kind of see if we can disaggregate a couple of different things here. When it comes to reducing hospitalization and death, the COVID vaccines are really good. I think most people I know wish that it were better at preventing transmission. It's not. The first one way back in 2021 was, as the variants started to come forward and new versions of the vaccine were put out, they weren't and aren't good at preventing transmission or infection, but they're very good at reducing hospitalization and death. One of the things that is true is that childhood COVID mortality is low, but it's not zero. Vaccination rates dropped among kids because of politicized fear-mongering, not because of safety data that was concerning to people. And the same CDC data that he cherry picks when it's convenient shows that vaccinated kids had lower hospitalization rates and fewer long COVID cases. It's just the data. You can say, I don't care about that, but you should acknowledge the totality of the data. McCary presents it like it's proof the vaccine's not worth it. In reality, it's just proof that misinformation works. Now, here's the thing about Marty McCary. He's not always wrong. And that's what makes him dangerous. He wrote a book that has a lot of interesting chapters in it, where he talks about surprise medical billing. He talks about over-testing and over-treatment in the United States. He talks about how it turns out that a lot of appendicitis cases can be successfully treated with antibiotics, even though there's a bias to doing an appendectomy. He talks about how vaginal birth after C-section is actually something that is much more feasible than many in the United States acknowledge, being very quick to say, if you had one C-section, we're going to do another one. He's got a lot of interesting stuff that he has written about, administrative bloat. But then on this issue, partially because of the administration that he's in, partially because most people aren't right about everything, he has started to really appeal to the anti-vax, anti-science circle. And this is who Trump wanted to run the FDA. So Margaret Brennan's reaction here was good. Why would we go with popularity rather than data? And then he's cherry picking data that you can versus can't trust from the CDC. So McCary sometimes has a point on some of these issues. He's found elements of greed in the medical system that he's called out in his book. When it comes to vaccines, he's now really just trading in ideology over evidence. And this is why putting people like this in charge of science is a very bad idea. Did you know that 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February? Lumen is something you can do for your health that's easy to stick to. Our sponsor, Lumen, is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. With a single breath first thing in the morning, Lumen measures your metabolism. It tells you, are you burning fat or are you burning carbs? And it'll give you tailored guidance for nutrition, workouts, sleep, and stress management. No more cookie cutter, one size fits all nutrition plans. Lumen lets you know what is happening in your body in real time and will build a personalized health plan based on that data. Lumen gives you daily macro recommendations based on what's happening with your metabolism so you can really fuel your body with what's best. Right before a workout, breathe into Lumen and it'll tell you if you're burning carbs or fat. Lumen will tell you if you need to carb up before a workout for an energy boost or if you're good to go. Get 15% off your Lumen by going to lumen.me/Pacman. The link is in the description.